So did Will Smith say he's the GOAT without saying that he is the GOAT?
Of what? Let's go.
Yeah. So in a recent interview with Sway in the Morning, legendary actor and rapper Will Smith shared his take on resilience, overcoming adversity, and finding greatness in the face of life's toughest challenges. He also spoke about how all of that ties into being the GOAT of a hip hop conversation. Now, I don't know if necessarily. Maybe it was referenced before this little clip because it was a 2-minute clip, but I didn't hear them actually say of hip hop because I thought that they just asked him about what makes a GOAT. But did you watch it?
I think it was more towards Sway mentioning hip hop. They were having hip hop conversations about the GOAT conversation in rap.
Okay,
and that
would make sense.
This is what he came up with.
All right, so let's watch this real quick.
What makes a GOAT? You can't be a GOAT in my mind until you've been on your knee with no energy to get up, until you had to figure out how to get up from hell, until you've had to look in the eyes of it being over. And then what did you do? Like when you've been to the edge of losing it all, and then how do you manage that? That is the thing that makes somebody a GOAT, is that they've been to the edge of their sanity. They've been to the edge of loss, and they made their way back to patience and beauty and peace and love and kindness.
Look, man.
Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, right?
It sounded nice, but that's not
exactly
right.
It sounded nice, but
do you see what I mean? Because to me, even if it's just, we're going to say, okay, the GOAT conversation, you can be a GOAT in whatever. That sounds like his most recent story.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
went to the bottom and he's come all the way back up. He's gotten back to where he was.
So you're saying he's patting himself on the back?
I took it as he's kind of telling everybody, this is me, really. I'm just not going to say it. 100%.
The GOAT of what, though, at the end of the day? Because
exactly.
when we're talking about Will Smith, Will Smith isn't playing to one audience, so to speak. So he's in music, he's in film, he's in even the production side of things. You know what I'm saying? As far as like creating
videos and stuff,
creating stuff. So what do you mean when you speak of GOAT? Because I honestly don't believe that Will Smith thinks he's the GOAT of hip hop or rap. I don't think he honestly believes that.
Does he think he is a GOAT?
How do you say that he's
lean
a
on
GOAT?
that. I can lean on him being a GOAT or one of the father figures of hip hop, being
potentially
being the one that pretty much won the first Grammy in hip hop. Him and Jazzy Jeff. So I mean, I can see that being a topic of conversation. But to christen himself as the GOAT, musically,
I don't think he said that.
I don't think he's saying that either.
I think he's saying to be one of the GOATs.
One of the GOATs, yeah.
Which grammatically doesn't make sense, but that's fine.
Yeah.
You know, we know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
But that's how it came off to me. He's literally telling you, this is where I'm at.
I mean, he's a great wordsmith, and he was doing a lot of word salad right there about nothing of what he spoke about. Sure, everything that he's saying, yes, it's great to have resilience. And I think as far as character is concerned, I think those are great embodiments to have as you move through life. But when we're talking about hip hop, all that is irrelevant to me. Like,
even if you're talking about his acting career, that's irrelevant to me.
Yeah. I only care about the bars and the music. Like when it comes to that,
or the films and whatever we're
talking about hip hop, right? So I don't care about what he did in Wild Wild West. Like,
why you pick Wild Wild?
You know, if you're talking about the bottom, I was like, were you talking about Gemini Man or what? What are we scratching our head about?
I'm out of. I ain't saying nothing about Gemini Man.
Okay.
Or After Earth.
Yeah.
He's never been to the bottom, though.
No, bottom.
The only thing that he has that is going against his character or any imagery that somebody has of him is him smacking Chris Rock at the award show.
But he's also married to Jada Pinkett Smith.
He's married to Jada Pinkett Smith.
Those are the only two knocks against him.
That even then, it was more jokingly towards him.
Sure.
It's like, you getting punked by a girl type stuff, and we always take up for him because of her. You know,
and it is
what
public.
we see, it is public.
Getting punked by your girl in public is low.
The thing about it is they don't care because they're rich, and he's doing stuff too. He just doesn't talk about the other women that he's messing with. Jada, on the other hand, needs to be known for something, so she had the Red Table series and was spilling out everything, whereas he doesn't need to do that. Yeah, he didn't need to do that.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I'm saying? Because if you're one of the people in Hollywood, you know that Will is on one out there doing whatever he's doing, but he's not going to talk about it. So it looks like
I don't know.
she's just doing it to him.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't help when you're being interviewed and you have these expressions on your face like, I can't believe this did this to me. You know what I'm saying?
No, I mean he almost replaced the crying Jordan face. That's how bad it was for him at one point.
Terry, that's a good point. He do look like that.
No, I mean like that.
Real.
I mean he looked like he's like, if this camera and on, I'd hop over this table and beat your ass
right now.
You know,
But even the bad movies don't deter from who Will Smith is, because he literally had a blockbuster hit every single summer for at least 5 or 6 years.
That's a hell of a run.
You know, and I say Gemini Man, but you know, I mean, he's also these last 2 Bad Boys movies. He was in Aladdin. It was the first on the call sheet for that. So, you know, there are people who would go crazy if they just had that on their career. You know, we still think about Eddie Murphy as one of the GOATs, you know, and he had a line of Eddie Murphy's movies was so bad, he didn't go to the premiere.
But what makes Will unique is
How about the music though?
That's what I was about to say. This is what makes him unique, because he's the hip hop part. There's that. Then there's him as an actor, which he's a lead in. I think better at acting than he is on the music side. Still legendary. But you can make a case for just a GOAT. There's a lot of stuff that he checks off.
Will Smith.
Yeah.
Well, okay,
I ain't talking about. I'm leaning more towards the other stuff. I ain't talking about
in music.
the
I
rap
could give
side.
him. You know, he got that first hip hop Grammy. He led the charge as far as like saying, "Hey, if they're not going to televise it, we're not going."
True.
So he led in that. You know, he came back around with the record sales. You know, there are notches on his belt that are very valid. And when he talks about coming back from
There's an asterisk.
the edge of whatever,
Yeah.
I mean, if musically, he got to talk about that from now, because the album he put out didn't even crack the top 200.
Yeah. It's an acquired taste. I've seen some people saying that they really like that album. But it also speaks to what type of person really likes this album.
True.
This is more so for the suburban dad that kind of grew up with Will Smith, wasn't really into, like, I can't say hip hop as a whole, but like they identify with Will Smith. So this kind of speaks to their character. I can G for that. I understand it. It's not necessarily my cup of tea as far as being so. I tried to give it a listen.
I did too.
I didn't. I mean, it's
Couple
not
joints on there,
bad, but it's just not an album that I'm going to live with like that.
He's just a different version of like Logic in a way, modernly. You know, like
Man.
like he can. And what I say by that, like Logic makes good songs.
He does.
On paper, you can check all the boxes. Will Smith does the same thing. You can check all the boxes. But I'm never, like, whenever I listen to a Will Smith record, it always just sounds like he's trying too hard.
He's an A student. He gets a 4.0. He's one of those people that can go to school and can do his thing without even trying.
Yeah.
All right. And then you have the other people that are doing the same thing you're doing, but it looks different.
Yeah.
And it's more sexy or attractive, so to speak, of how this person is doing it. To his point, though, when we go back to GOAT, musically, Will Smith has a song that will be played every summer for the rest of our lives and for times to come.
Yeah,
true.
You know what I'm saying? So
sure. He's got one.
Everybody
got a
does.
few.
He's got a few, but there's one in particular, "Summertime,"
right? That
will never leave. It's not a Mariah Carey Christmas song, but it's still something that is never going away.
True,
and he has that under his belt.
He just has so many asterisks next to his name. To me, it's just like with his new stuff, we wouldn't talk about him at all if it wasn't Will Smith. We wouldn't be talking about it.
And I think that's why it kind of leans toward the he's a GOAT conversation.
Maybe, but then you have to factor in all the criteria of why we consider him a GOAT. And I think one of the major criterion, outside of the obvious of the Grammys and the stuff Jay mentioned and having the Summertime record, outside of like up to 95, you know, like in that.
Even after that,
yeah, he had a couple.
He had a couple joints.
Yeah, the Big Willie style.
You got to count the Big Willie style.
Got to count that one.
That's a diamond.
But the thing is, even with Big Willie style, that it did not go diamond because Will Smith is a great rapper. That went diamond because Will Smith is a superstar actor.
It was a good album, though.
It was a solid check all the boxes off album.
It was a good album.
But you know what? Also with it was, and I'm not saying this is all of why it sold, but it was also coming off of the era where we lost Big, we lost Pac.
True.
And I think, people were looking for something that here's an album that didn't have a whole bunch of cursing and talking about and hoes and this, that, and the third. And I could listen to it with my kids in the car. I think that meant a lot at
I can
that
agree
time.
with that.
It's like that album came out after like the smoke and the bullets and it was almost the perfect album at the perfect time. And it was the perfect person with Will Smith, who had become a mainstream superstar.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm not knocking, like, Getting Jiggy With It, Miami.
Yeah.
Like, just the two of us. Come on, he made a song about fatherhood, at that time when we were just listening to the wildest stories in hip hop. And I think that resonated with people at that time, and it was perfect.
Definitely did. It worked. It worked, and it had an artist who was up and coming and had solidified himself, Jay-Z, have to acknowledge Will Smith in the same room as him, essentially. Because if you listen to a Jay-Z album, he's talking about still sold more records than Will Smith.
Yep.
That was a pinnacle to reach to sell those albums. He's talking about Big Willie style.
No, he's talking about Millennium, because Millennium
okay.
and I think the Dynasty album came out.
I didn't like Millennium.
Kind of goes to my point, though.
Came out around the same time. So when he's not, because nothing Jay-Z's done is outsold Big Willie style.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have to put Jay-Z albums together.
You're correct.
True. That's true.
Yeah, I don't know. I bought Big Willie style, so I know the album.
Yeah,
and
I bought it too.
I appreciated parts of it, but I would be lying if I sat here and said that it was on par with any other album, even though it's went diamond and sold a bazillion more records than anybody else in hip hop. I'm not putting it probably in my top 100 albums that I'm going to listen to. Probably in the 90s. Yeah. Probably in the 90s. Maybe not even the top 50 of that year. I don't know. Maybe that's stretching it. Yeah. But what I'm saying is like there's a major asterisk next to his name, and I don't know if it's necessarily his fault. It's just that he is so big. It's like the same reason to why like I'm not going to care about a billionaire's feelings. It's the same. It comes from the same place. It's like I can't relate to Will Smith in a lot of ways, because it's like what you said about him and his going through all this stuff that he's going through. Mm-hmm. He's a multimillionaire. Like I can't relate to that on a personal level. Yeah. And I can't relate to the types of struggles that he's talking about, because it feels like the types of struggles that he has, he's essentially kind of manufacturing in a way.
Mm.
Oh, and don't get me wrong. Everybody is human. I said that last week about those dudes I don't care about, but like, Will is a human. He has feelings. All that stuff is valid. But at the same time, it's like he's got all the resources to take care of all this stuff in his own type of way. And I'm just not interested in it from a human level. Like,
this is not me being facetious. So it's like, Will, you have the amount of money to where you can easily get the best therapist in the world to help you through these things. I can't relate to your working through your self-doubt, the things that all of us work through just on a human level, regardless of, quote unquote, the fame or our resources. But like, if anybody has the resources to get these things, I don't know, just to take care of these things, it's you. And I don't want to hear about it when, if I say I want a certain level of help and therapy, it's harder for me to get because I got to get up and go to work. I mean, not like what he's not doing his work, but also I got to think, is my insurance company, or if I don't even have an insurance company, are they going to pay for this?
Right. Yeah. But it's more money, more problems, like they say. So, I mean, he still has the same type of problems that we would have essentially outside of the gaze of Hollywood. But those problems, yes, you are correct. These are situations you've created on your own due to your financial status. That is true.
I don't think they're his fault either.
No, they're not necessarily all his fault, but it definitely comes with the territory. This particular situation here, we have to realize Will is doing a rollout on not only an album, but his brand is coming back out to the front.
Plus a tour.
This is about everything that he's doing. This is encompassing all that he's doing. Welcome me back so that I can get this money.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? That's how I kind of see the whole
welcome
situation.
Me back just because like I have always had a certain self-esteem issue and wanted to feel valid, not just to, the people who I love or the people who supposedly love me, but I've lived my entire life in the public eye and I want that public to value not only my art, but me as a person. So that's where I'll put my heart on my sleeve and say these things that may not come off as sincere because you see my worldly success, but spiritually and emotionally, I have these problems that my money and my fame cannot buy me out of.
Absolutely, and I don't disagree with any of that.
I respect that.
I don't disagree with any of that.
I respect that.
But I think there, with the great power, when all this, I've said this before in the show. I like Will Smith. Like I like him. Sure. I like him as a person in general. Yeah. I think I can admire the fact that he does put his heart on his sleeve. He does attempt to do stuff. But what I also said is sometimes it's hard with him being such a great actor. Sometimes I don't know which Will Smith I'm getting sometimes. And when it comes down to it, it's just hard for me to realistically connect with what he is trying to portray as somebody who literally has almost everything. I
think the real Will Smith walked up on that stage and smacked Chris Rock.
I think that was an act too.
Yeah, you think so? Yep. I think that was the real one. Like, because sometimes through this era of perfection, sometimes you get tired of wearing the mask. And he went up and smacked Chris Rock, which I still think was the best thing to do.
Yep.
I think that whole move was cumulative, man. A lot of stuff had built up in him. To your point about who he quote unquote is as a person, as an individual, the things he's talked about in his books, his childhood, that was just a boiling point to me. When he did that, he had enough. I've been the butt of the jokes for this, the stuff we discussed. I've always been looked at as someone that's perfect and all this other stuff. I've been
I'm
in the
up for
light.
an Oscar tonight.
There
which
we go.
he won.
Which he won, but that was just the breaking point, man. I do think that
and plus
was who he was. And plus
he's trying to he when we talk about seeking approval, he's still trying to seek the approval of this woman who embarrasses him on a regular basis. And for whatever reason, I joked one time, and once again, who am I? But I was like, man, Will should have stayed in his first bad marriage if he was going to stick something out, that Therese Zampino was beautiful. I don't know why he didn't stick with that. If he's going to stick in a bad marriage, stick with her.
The problem with that situation probably is that it's open, but she talks more about it. Kind of what I was saying.
Yeah.
And that's what puts him in the bad light. And I think what happened that particular night is Chris Rock took the baiting for everybody that's been talking about him. He decided to bring that up that night, say something about his wife. This was his outlet to, okay, I'm tired of everybody talking about me and talking about my situation. Chris Rock was fooled that night, essentially.
He was.
That's
fooled.
exactly what happened to me.
I will acknowledge what you guys said about this being a boiling point moment.
100%.
Because I agree. But I also think him deciding to stand up and walk all the way up on stage after he had been yelling was performative.
I think he lost bags because of that.
I think he thought he could get away with it.
I don't know, man.
Lone, that's
he needed that tough guy image as well. Because that's what he's been trying to portray all these years.
Lone, I honestly think it's just like I said, it's just my personal opinion. I really believe he wasn't thinking at that point.
Maybe
something snapped in him.
I think he was out of there. Like he just blacked out. I don't think he was thinking about what he did. I don't think he was thinking about
like when his demeanor changed when he looked at Jada. You remember that?
I do remember that.
I think that's, once again, we're talking about something that's cumulative. When I talk about him he's still trying to gain Jada Pinkett's approval. Like I said, he was about to be crowned the king of Hollywood that night. He won that Oscar. So here's somebody who has ruled the box office.
Yep.
Who is a hit maker on so many levels: action, drama, biopic.
He's checked the boxes,
and he was about to get that Oscar. He'd have been the king of the hill. He'd have been right up there with Denzel and whoever else you want to put him up there with. The great you want to talk about a GOAT conversation. He took himself out of Hollywood's GOAT conversation because there are people who forgot he won an Oscar that night.
That part.
Yeah, he literally released the tariffs the same day that he won the award. His stock dropped.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's not the GOAT of hip hop, so
yeah,
that's what I'm looking at.
We'll definitely.
He's in the GOAT conversation as far as entertainment is concerned.
Yes, he definitely is.
And that maybe that's
as far as hip hop, but as far as entertainment overall, he checks off the boxes.
Yeah,
checks off the boxes.
He does. He checks the boxes off.
Quit playing Will like that.
Yeah, Will that dude.
I mean, tell me where I'm lying.
No, you ain't lying.
He's like he's checking the boxes off. Like I like Will Smith, but like I know a box checker when I see one.
He gets straight A's.
I see what you did there. He gets straight A's. Oh my gosh.
About the maze.
So if you know, you know, guys.
If you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. That went right over your head.
Yeah.
He gets straight A's.